Sit tall and close the eyes. And just take a moment to breathe. And take a moment to allow yourself to be established in your seat. Take a moment to allow the breath to flow deeply. You could place your right hand on the heart and left hand over the right, connecting with the beating of your very own heart. And then on your next exhale, draw the palms together in front of the heart. And we'll lift our voices in one Om, followed by the invocation mantras. If you know the mantras, please join, taking a breath in. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Ganana Antva Ganapati Gom Hava Mahe Kavin Kavinam Upama Shravastamam Jesta Rajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrinvanuti Besida Sadanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vaje Bhirvajini Vati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Devo Brahataf Parvatada Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Gritachi Shagmano Vachamushati Shrinotu Vagdevye Namaha. And gently releasing the hands down, fluttering the eyes open. Oh. So I thought today we would talk a little bit about the witness. It's a very important concept in yoga. And it's a very important practice in life that can really support our mental health, our overall well-being, our happiness, and our clarity. Day to day, we walk through life as doers. That's our typical reaction to life. I want to do that. I want to do this. I want to get involved in that. I want to get involved in this. I want to get that. I want to get this. And so our mind is constantly churning in such a way that it's giving us things to do all the time. And a lot of those things are not necessarily healthy for us. Sometimes they are. But most of the time, it's just distraction. Just distraction. The tradition recognizes that when we're distracted, we're not present in the moment to what's happening, to what's genuinely happening. And as a result of that, we have misunderstanding, deep misunderstanding about ourselves, about others, about the role that we play in our relationships, about the experiences that we have moment to moment, hour to hour, day to day, year to year. When we're not present, we don't have the big picture. It's like if you were at the art museum and you were standing in front of a beautiful painting, trying to see the painting, but there's somebody with a screen, a big screen, and they keep moving it in front of you so you can only ever see a tiny little sliver of the picture. The screen is entirely distracting. And at some point you define your experience of the painting by way of the screen and not the painting. So in order to have a greater clarity about the painting, you need to move the screen out of the way. So the teachings tell us we need to move the distractions out of the way. It's not something that you do overnight. It's not something that, like, we have this conversation now and from now on, clarity, 100%, no distractions. It doesn't happen that way. It's a little bit at a time. First of all, we need to decide, and maybe with the support of a teacher or the support of some wisdom, whether by way of a scripture or a text that has some authority, we have to decide what our definition of distraction is. And then hopefully we also make the decision that we're willing to expand that definition to constantly include more and more and more. But first, what is our definition of distraction? The easiest definition, but it's also kind of vague, is that a distraction is anything that takes you out of the present moment. Anything that takes you out of the present moment. When we provide definitions like that, what does it do? We've talked about it before. It just opens up more questions because now you've got to define every single word in that definition. What do you mean present moment? What is the present moment? What is the present moment? Is it right now? Oop, gone. Right now? Can I catch it? Can I get a hold of it? No, that's a second. A second is part of linear time. A moment is eternal. So the present moment is now. Now, as an eternal presence. It's difficult for us as human beings to separate that from the linear timeline. And we can talk about presence in the linear timeline too. We can say that in a given moment, like if your phone rang right now, right? If your phone rang right now, you would have a choice whether to answer the phone or not. You could answer the phone as it being a distraction. That there's, what my good friend over here likes to call FOMO. The fear of missing out on this call. Or you could answer the phone mindfully because it rang and not allow it to disturb you. You could answer the call purposefully because the number you recognize wouldn't be calling you unless something was absolutely needed from you. So we can work with presence on the linear timeline, but it is also helpful to talk about this idea that presence in the moment is not just about this second, this minute, this hour. It's about you and your life. Beginning, middle, and ongoing. It's about life and how you show up to it. So, to be present in the moment is to be continually moving that screen out of the way. And by the way, it's not just one. There's probably 100,000 screens, one right after the other. And to be willing to do the work of moving each screen. And sometimes they slide back in, then you take them back out again. The work is ongoing, but it's an interesting, I guess it's an interesting experience. Another word is not coming to me right now, but this is the only tradition where the practice and the work of moving the screens of distraction out of the way is actually presence itself. It's actually presence. Keeping the screens there and letting them define you, that's not presence, that's ignorance. But the work associated with adjusting those screens so that they're not a distraction, that's actually an act of presence. It's an act of acknowledgement that in this minute, this second, and in this moment, that there is something that is under my control, and that is my awareness and the way that I apply it or don't. So, what does this have to do with witnessing? Well, in order to witness, we need to be a little bit more present in the moment. We need to be willing to look and see a little bit more clearly, and hopefully continually more clearly, at what's happening in our life, what's happening in our mind, what's happening in our heart, what's happening in our relationships. And not coming at those things from a place of expectation, preference, impression, but coming forward from a place of just seeing. So I could look at that backjack that's on the floor, and I could make all kinds of judgment calls. I could say, it's faded. It has a little tear on the seam. Its seam is a little crooked. I could come and I could use all of those impressions that I have to cause me to make a judgment of the thing, in which case now I'm not seeing the thing, I'm only seeing its flaws. Or what I consider to be its perfections, right? So in some way, shape, or form, I'm settling into a judgment of that. So I can't be present to it. Because if I have a judgment, especially if it's a harsh, critical, negative judgment, then the thing will never have potential for me. There'll always be a block, a resistance, a tendency. And we do this in our relationships, don't we? How do we do this in our relationships? You always and you never. The 4 words that we could, if we wanted to, work to strike, so that we have a little bit of greater clarity about the truth of things. Because in a relationship, nobody always does anything or never does anything. It's far more complicated than that. So to witness is to just see. To use the eyes that you've been given to just see. And to try not to impose your own personal preferences, impressions, attitudes, opinions into what you're seeing. That's really hard. I mean, it's easy, but it's also difficult. If you walk outside and you sit by the pond, it's a little easier because you can gaze at the fish and the water and the waterfall, and you can just let it be what it is, because it's not uncomfortable. It's not uncomfortable. But what happens then is that, let's say that you sit by the pond for a little while and you're just witnessing the fish swimming, and you are having judgments because maybe in your mind you're saying, oh my gosh, they're so pretty. Look at the fins. I really like that one. Try not to do that. Just sit there and have an experience of, you can even close your eyes and just hear the water falling, hear the little fish splashing around, feel the heat of the sun or the chill of the breeze, depending if you have a sweater on or not, and have as pure of an experience as possible. It's very easy over there to do that because there's nothing really uncomfortable as long as the bees have gone away. But what happens then is a really interesting thing. What happens then is that your psyche comes forward, or really your ego comes forward and says, this is comfy. This is nice. I like this. Peace must always be nice. Stillness must always be nice. Witnessing must always be undisturbed, undistracted. Must always be that way. So then something happens and a bird flies by and poops on your white shirt, or a bee flies too close to your face, and all of a sudden your stillness is shattered and you become irritated, short-tempered, impatient, judgmental, and drawing on those impressions again. When the reality is, does it really have to impact you that way? Well, I just bought this white shirt. Yeah, but you all know that if you buy a white shirt and you wear it, something's going to get on it. I used to, when I was wearing white before the orange, it's like a spectrum of colors. When I was wearing white before the orange, I would go out and garden in my whites. And Michelle would come out and she'd say, how are you still clean? Like, you have whites on and you're digging dirt and planting seeds and doing this and doing that. And I'd say, well, I don't know. And then I'd come inside and get a glass of juice and spill it all over myself. So at some point in time, it's going to get you, you know. Do you just laugh a little bit at the simpler things and let them go? Or do you grab hold of it and just suffocate the life out of it and make it all there is? Does that make sense? Yeah. In today's day and age, we're having a little bit of a tendency to grab a hold of everything and suffocate the life out of it. And that doesn't make life very pleasant at all. It also makes us really tired, short-tempered, a bit bitter, and losing hope and vision. If we want to remain strong and vital, if we want to remain determined to bring our best self forward into the world, if we want to remain inspired and inspiring, then we need to learn about what to invest in and what not to invest in. It benefits us wholly to cultivate the ability to let the bee be the bee. And if the bird poops on your whites, just take it off and wash it. And try not to have these huge reactions to things that are really not consequential to you in the long run and even in the short run. Does that make sense? Because what happens to us is that we're so busy, and really it's not just nowadays, this is typical human behavior. We're so busy reacting to things. Like, someone can say hello to you and it's like, what do you mean by that? We're so busy reacting to things that don't need our reaction, that when something finally does happen that needs us, we have no energy. We have no grounding, no wherewithal. We feel completely attacked, battered. We feel it's impossible, it's insurmountable. We become hopeless in our hearts, doubtful in our minds. And all because we took so much energy and put it in places that it wasn't needed. One of the main places that we put so much of our energy is in our own emotional impressions, most of which have zero foundational substance. We talk in our mind. We run a story over and over again. Any of you does this sound familiar? So you're at the grocery store, I don't know, or some store, and you're shopping and some person is rude to you, and you either interact with them or you walk away mad. And you get to the checkout line and you check out your stuff and you're replaying it like that stupid person, that mean person, that this person, that person. And you get out into your car and your friend calls you and they're like, where are you? What's up? What you doing? And you're like, you never believe what just happened to me. This person in the store was so mean. I can't believe that they said what they said to me. I wasn't even doing anything. And so you tell the story and then you go home and maybe your partner says, how was it at the store? Did you get everything? Well, yeah, I got everything. But you know what happened while I was there? And every time you tell the story, it's a deeper stabbing wound. And and the deeper that you stab yourself with that wound, the more energy leaks out. Energy leaks out and goes someplace else, and you don't have it anymore. And eventually, if that's the way that we're going to react and respond to people, then we are not going to know how to react and respond to people in a healthy manner. We will not know what a healthy boundary is. We will assume we do. But a healthy boundary will become nothing but a defensive mechanism that makes the other the enemy. And that's not conducive to a healthy life. What does this have to do with witnessing? It has everything to do with witnessing, because we will never come into a place where we accept the fact that we do this unless we watch ourselves. We actually observe what our own behavior is. And so for me personally, this is the most practical level of witnessing. The most practical level of witnessing is watching yourself, paying attention to yourself, to your triggers, to your enjoyments, to what brings you peace, to what irritates you, so that you can adapt, adjust, and accommodate accordingly, so that your reactions and responses are more situationally appropriate, thereby economizing your own energy and having some energy for when you really, really need it. That can really only be done through the first level of witnessing. And what it means is that you have to step back from the judgment, from the fear, from the tendency. Step back and take a breath. And they say, there's a book somewhere written about this. They say, if you take like 1 or 3 breaths before you respond or react, it will change the entire situation. Because that 1 to 3 breaths gives you the opportunity to recognize a little bit more about what's really happening. The other really interesting thing that they say is that in our interactions with each other, but also within the self, we don't listen. When a person talks to us, when a person says something to us, we don't listen. We hear like the first 3 to 5 words, and then all we're doing for the rest of the time is plotting their demise by way of our reaction. Well, this is what I'm going to say. This is what I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to reply. And it could have been, like that person in the store, it could have been that they said something like, would you watch where you're going? And that was the trigger. Now you're absent. And they followed it up with, I really got a little nervous there because I thought you were going to run your cart into me. And that's happened to me before. But you're not hearing any of that because the red flags went up because they said, would you please watch where you're going? Or would you watch where you're going? Or maybe they were a little sharp in the tongue and you took that as a threat and you didn't listen to the rest of it. And can everybody associate with that? I think we all can. It's very human, right? Very human. So we listen. We step back. We take a breath, 2, maybe 3, maybe 12. It just depends. And we can ask ourselves a couple of questions in that moment where we're learning about witnessing and what it is to witness our own self as well as everything else around us. We can ask ourselves, is it necessary? Is it true? Yeah? And if you abide in the teachings of the tradition, then it's probably not true, at least not 100%, and it's probably not necessary. So why do it? I have a good friend of mine, and she was having some familial challenges with, and an aunt of hers. And there were some very harsh things that were happening. And so she wanted to write this person a letter. And so she did. She wrote like a 3 or 4 or 5 page letter, scathing, you know. And then she sat down and she said, she reread it. She reread it first and said, okay, now I have to take out everything that is not factual. Take out everything that is not true. And take out everything that is not necessary. And I think there's a not hurtful also. Take out everything that is hurtful. And she ended up with like one word. Yeah. You know. Can you imagine that, going from 5 pages to one word? What does that mean in your life? To go from 500 reactions and responses to maybe 1 or 2. But could you imagine? So last night, we had kirtan. And Geeta's wonderful love, Jeff, was up on the stage with everybody. And he said, I forget the context that it was in, but basically what he said was, he goes, I get to do this like almost every weekend. He said, I get to sit up here on the stage and just like, and I told Geeta, I don't know if I could do this every weekend because it just feels so up here, you know, and I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but basically what he was saying was, hey, Brian, you were there, right? Yeah. He was saying that it felt so good that he didn't know if he could keep doing it as much as he was doing it. I said, don't be silly. Of course you can do it. You can do it even more. Even more you could do it. Because what is the alternative? The alternative is to feel a different way. Burdened, sad, angry, separate. But he was right. He was absolutely correct that those things that allow us to feel uplifted, that allow us to feel purposeful, connected, alive, they do require energy. They require energy. And if you have expended all your energy on what makes you feel cruddy, then what energy are you going to have to invest in what makes you feel truly whole? So, taking the time to witness one's own behavior, one's own actions and reactions, responsiveness, avoidances, graspings, preferences, opinions, judgments. It sounds so big, right? It's like, oh my gosh, that's so tedious. I don't want to do that. I just want to go eat chocolate cake. Well, go eat the chocolate cake, but watch yourself eating it. And as you're eating it, just ask yourself, like, yes, this is tasty. I mean, chocolate cake, I love a good chocolate cake. 7-layer chocolate eruption cake. Oh, man, the best in the world. It's got like 7 different kinds of dark chocolate and then a milk chocolate in there too. But then I realized, like, chocolate was a crutch. It really was, because it started off exciting. Like, look at that cake. So amazing. Oh my gosh. You know, and so you get a piece and you think you're being very good to yourself because you take a half of a piece instead of a whole piece. And you take the first bite and it truly is all it's cracked up to be. But no other bite of that piece of cake will be that. Every other bite of that piece of cake will only be me trying to recreate that absolutely beautiful moment when I first tasted it. And there will always be something missing. And ultimately, if I eat the whole piece of cake because I'm trying to recapture that very first impression, then number 1, I was not present to any other experience that I had during that time. And number 2, I will not feel well. I won't feel well. Right? I'll feel disappointed, drained, dissatisfied. And then the human tendency is, so now I'm going to go search for that. So you can transpose the chocolate cake with whatever it is for you, right? And I don't eat that much chocolate cake anymore, but really, truly, chocolate, that would be my go-to. Absolutely. But no, can't. No. What is your go-to? What is it? And by go-to, I don't mean a good go-to. I mean like the go-to that is the distraction, right? Because then I have to ask myself also, so if I'm going to do this self-study thing, I have to ask myself, why am I going to the cake? Why am I going to the cake when I know that there's a salad in the refrigerator? Why am I going to that when I know that there's something else? Why am I going to the argument when I know that peace is available to me? Why am I going to the judgment when I know that compassion is available to me? Why am I going to apathy when I know that empathy is available to me? Why am I making the choice I'm making? What's it doing for me? What's it doing for those others who are involved? Is there a way that I can make better choices in this second, minute, hour, moment? The only way we come to clarity with these things is if we step back. And again, that's the kind of like this first level of witnessing, is to step back from the tendencies. And it doesn't take a long time. It's just a few moments here and there. Little tiny changes build up over time. Once you get accustomed to that in life, once you start getting accustomed, you hold a space for that in your life to just kind of look in the mirror a little more often and be kind to the person looking back at you, but also be honest with yourself about the things that maybe aren't serving you very well, the tendencies that are kind of getting you in trouble every now and then, the things that are hurtful. Be honest with yourself about those. And then as you start to make little changes, those little changes create a positive cycle, right? Everybody's heard of a negative cycle? Like the negative cycle of abuse and how it builds upon itself. Well, the positive cycle of inspiration builds upon itself too. You just have to give it a chance. And the more that we're willing to make these little changes, that positive cycle of inspiration will start to build and grow in our life. And then we'll want more of that and less of the other stuff. But it's not an overnight thing, right? It's not. It takes time. So in the meantime, not only are you cultivating the practice and some skill of witnessing, you're also cultivating the strength to do that work. You're cultivating the willpower to do that work. You're cultivating the vision of yourself as knowing yourself in a more whole way, a more complete way. You're cultivating that vision also. As those things happen, we tend to start asking deeper questions. Is this making sense to everybody? So as we start doing that work or continuing that work, we start to tend to ask deeper questions. And one of the questions that we might ask ourselves is, well, if I'm not here just to be one big old reaction all the time, why am I here? What's the purpose? What am I supposed to do? And that question drives some people mad a little bit because they want a clear answer. The teachings give us the clear answer, but everybody follows it up with more questions. So the answer we're not quite ready for. The answer is Dharma, right? That's what you're here for. You're here to fulfill your Dharma, your duty in this life. And there's different perspectives on this, but basically they all intersect at one thing, and that is your Dharma in this life is to come to know yourself as the whole self and not as the limited self that that you keep insisting upon, right? So we're not our traumas. We're not our addictions. We're not our mistakes. We're not our failures. We're not our successes. We're not our popularity. We're not our wealth. We're not the color of our skin. We're not the texture of our hair. We're not the language that we speak. We're so much more than that. So much more than that. And to abide in Dharma at all of its different levels allows us to move beyond those tiny little identifications and into something far, far more profound. And that's the soul of the self. The soul. And, I'm sitting here speaking as a white woman who has privilege. And I recognize that. I absolutely have privilege. I have trauma in my background. I have hurt in my background. I have mistakes in my background. I have all those things. But there are other things I don't have. And so there's a lot of ways that I can sit here and I can talk about how I moved beyond certain things in my life, but in no way, shape, or form am I saying that I would expect anybody else to move beyond the obstacles that are present in their life. The only thing that I'm suggesting is that if each and every one of us do some amount of work, we're going to find a much easier path to walk together, side by side, supporting each other, helping each other, lifting each other up. Rather than, this is my path, that's your path, and that's your path. Don't come on my path. Don't come anywhere near me. Stay over there. Don't take anything from me. Don't ask anything of me. Because all that is to continue to live in the defensiveness, isn't it? Would you agree? Yeah. So this like next level of witnessing brings us into these deep questions of purpose. 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 And not just my purpose, but like, what's everybody else's purpose? And those questions lead us into something even deeper. They lead us into, if we allow it, they lead us into a deeper, more compassionate understanding of the suffering of others. Now, ultimately, there's no such thing as others, but there's such thing as others in our worldly experience. I look out and I see all of you, bright, shining, beautiful faces, Some of you are a little tired. Some of you are vibrant and awake, right? I don't know very much about any of you in the past life. Some of you I know a little better than others. But you know what I do know? I don't need the details. I know you've suffered. I know you've suffered. And how do I know that? Because I have. And I know that you have dreams and aspirations, and that some of those have been crushed, and some of them have been empowered. And how do I know that? I don't need the details. I know it because I've had the same experience. Different details. Same experience led to suffering. I look at you and I recognize that you have fallen in love, and you have also fallen in hate. And both of those things have caused you great suffering. And how do I know that? Because I've also fallen in love and fallen into hate. And so when we come into the level of witnessing where we're understanding ourselves a little more, we're asking these deeper questions about purpose in our life, we're recognizing the thing that connects us initially in our physical experience is actually suffering. Then we start to have a deeper empathy and a more expansive compassion for each other. And when we have that, the heart compels us to put down our defenses. Until the heart compels us to put down our defenses, we're still defensive. That's all there is to it. And the only thing that compels the heart to put down the defenses is compassion and empathy. Love. And the only way that we achieve that is when we stop looking out and saying, or you've got it so much better than me, or you've got it so much worse than me. But to look out and to say, we're both suffering, different details. Neither one of us want to. How about we just stop hurting each other? How about we just stop it and come to a place of presence where we can literally honor and respect one another? Does that make sense? Time check. So then, we travel that part of the path for a while, and we get into some really deep ideas and thoughts and questions, and we seek counsel, and we read the scriptures of whatever tradition we're part of, and we do the work, and we forget, and we remember, and we forget again, and we remember, and it's really a back and forth. It's not just a one-way road. It's like you take 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. It's a beautiful tango at best, right? And at some point, maybe early on, maybe later, it's just different for everybody. But there's another level of witnessing that happens, and there's many more. We're going to focus on 3. And that's when you start to realize that all of this is divine. All of this is divine. The sweet little fish swimming around in the pond that you were witnessing as your first exercise of witnessing. The beautiful sun that was bringing heat to you. The breeze that was bringing a little bit of a chill. And even the bee that flew a little too close to your face for comfort. It's all part of that divine consciousness. And through the process of witnessing, not only do we recognize or begin to recognize on some level that all of this is the manifestation of that divine consciousness, but we also begin to realize that it's not personal. The bee wasn't attacking me. The tree didn't fall on my car because I'm a bad person. The storm didn't come to my town because I belong to a community that deserved to have their home wrecked. It's not personal. It's not like that. It has really nothing to do with me, but everything to do with me. Only from the perspective of that divine consciousness that's out there, that I'm witnessing, that I'm watching, that I'm looking at as the trees bud and bloom and fade into the seasons. That divine consciousness is the same exact divine consciousness that's here and there in each one of you. So it's not at all personal, but it's 100% connected. Only witnessing the practice of Sakshi can bring us to that realization, or allow us to have the multitude of little epiphanies along the way that lead us to that realization. And you don't... My hope is that nobody walks away from this talk thinking like, I'm going to treat everything through the witnessing eye from now on, because no, I'm sorry, but you're not. It's not really possible to do it all at once without some kind of miracle happening, a massive miracle, right? For all of us, the journey is to remember to forget, to remember to forget, to remember to forget. Back and forth, back and forth. And hopefully through these practices, we start to remember a little more than we forget. And then hopefully that starts that cycle of inspiration. I want to remember more. So I want to live my life in such a way that it's going to allow that. And typically right around there, somebody asks the question, but what if other people won't let you live that way? Who's stopping you? The only one stopping you from living that way is you. Thich Nhat Hanh, my very favorite book from him, is called Be Free Where You Are. And it was the speech that he gave at the Maryland State Penitentiary in, I don't even know, like the 1970s or something. And he was talking to the guards and to the inmates. And he was pointing out some really interesting things, which I'm going to paraphrase and nowhere near as eloquently as he said it. But he said, it's so interesting to watch this, that here's the prisoners, the inmates. They have to be here. They can't walk out the door. And yet most of them say that they feel more free in jail than when they're out in society, free. And here's the guard, who can come and go as they please. And they feel like they're locked down, in bondage, held to something. He said it's all perspective. It's all perspective. And then he gave a really interesting example. He said, you can all experience freedom in any moment that you choose to. Any moment. And the example that he gave was, he said, even the inmate, when they take a morning bowel movement, experiences a moment of freedom, of letting go. And I read that like 3 times the first time I read that. I was like, did he really just say that to a group? I was like, of course he did. And then I thought, but is it true? And then I thought, oh my God, it is true, isn't it? It is true. Each one of us, in something so mundane, can absolutely experience freedom. You experience freedom when you go and have the first sip of your cucumber melon smoothie. That first sip is absolute freedom, right? When you feel uplifted because you've taught a beautiful yoga class, there's a freedom there. When you've created the world's most wonderful pear cobbler, there's a freedom there. When you have put together an absolutely beautiful series of social media posts and informational pieces that are going to support people in receiving the services that they're seeking, there's a freedom there. Do you all see what I'm saying? Like, there's freedom in your work. Absolutely. There's freedom in your work. When you plant that little plant into the earth, is there not freedom in that?
Yes.
There is. Why aren't we focusing on that? Why aren't we focusing on the freedom in the work rather than the egotistical disappointment that there has to be work? Like everything should be as easy as sitting undisturbed by a pond. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Do you know how quickly you'd get bored? All right, questions or reflections? Yes, Brian.
I sort of know the definition of Dharma, but I'm interested to know your definition and how you would explain Dharma.
So Dharma simply translates as duty. And so your Dharma is your duty. Now the question is, what kind of Dharma are you talking about? Because there's literally lists of Dharmas. So there's the Dharma of the embodied human, and there's 36 of them, I believe it is. 36 different duties that you must fulfill as a human being. But then there's the spiritual Dharma, and there's communal Dharma as well. But the ultimate Dharma is to come to know the truth. It is your duty in this life to come to know the truth of consciousness.
Okay.
And if you follow all the other Dharmas and fulfill the other Dharmas that are applicable to you, then that sets the conditions necessary within you so that you can come to that higher Dharma and you can embrace that greater knowing.
Okay.
Yeah, great question. Other questions or reflections? Yes?
The reference to the bee reminded me of an experience I had day before yesterday, I think. I was sitting outside in my nature spot while my dog was playing, and I was actually working on my phone looking for flights to Peru for January, and I was so focused and concentrated, and there's bugs crawling on me, and of course this is tick land, and I just wasn't worried. I figured that out later. I have a spotted lanternfly crawling up me, and then all of a sudden I see this stick bug, one of those long stick bugs crawling up me, and he's crawling around, they're crawling on my head, and I'm just like completely fine with it. And I was witnessing myself be fine with it, and the stick bug finally came over and sat on my glasses for about 20 minutes while I was working, and I was just enjoying witnessing this happening, and also at the same time witnessing myself being completely fine with it. It was like totally cool, and then at the end of it, he just kind of like hopped off and landed on my arm and then went away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing, right? But we swat things away, and we all do, every single one of us. But when we swat is an act of violence, and it knows it. It knows it. When you sit peacefully, it's not violent. So it'll hang around a little bit, or it won't. You let it come and go of its own volition. Let it be what it is, And that's a beautiful witnessing. Because not only do you get to know yourself a little bit better in that moment, but you also get to know the object a little bit better in that moment. And maybe that knowledge that becomes unlocked about that object actually brings a sense of awe to yourself. You actually see things. Like the other day, there was a praying mantis back on the back bush, and I got very close and I took a couple of pictures of her, and I'm looking at her, and she had a very full abdomen. And so I was talking to Alex and who else was there? I think Casey was there with me. And we were talking about how sometimes when they have an abdomen like that, it's a parasite. But sometimes it's not. And sometimes it's because they're going to lay eggs. So I'm looking at her, and she walks toward me a little bit. And you know how when a praying mantis is like disturbed, they go up like this. Well, she didn't do that. She went out and touched my hand. And so I just put my hand up, and she curled right onto it. She's sitting looking at me. Chandika came over. I passed her over to Chandika. She brought her over here. She's laying eggs. That's what she was doing. But I got the most cool video of her belly, right? And you can see the pulsation of life happening there. Had we just swatted her away, would have never come into that moment of awe. So next time that you're getting ready to swat something away, whether it be a bee or a person or any object, ask yourself first, what might I be missing? What awe, what wonder, what curiosity might I be saying no thank you to in that moment? Yeah. And so she received the transfer very wonderfully, and Chandika was a little nervous. She was like, don't fly away, don't fly away. She brought her over, put her in the poppies. She's in the poppies. Yeah, so hopefully we'll see a bunch of babies over there soon. But it was pretty wild. Yeah. So when you start learning about witnessing your own self, you also start learning about how to witness others. And then the witnessing takes on a quality that is not fear, but curiosity. Yeah. Any other questions or reflections?
Can you repeat that?
It'll be on YouTube. Yes.
Oh, we can access your...
Oh, yes, absolutely. There's like 400 talks up there or something.
I wish I would have asked her if we could have recorded.
Yeah.
They're on Spotify too.
And they're on Spotify. And I think they're on Apple.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're on iTunes also, I
The
think.
quality on Spotify is great too.
Yeah.
Swamini's got an app for that. Okay, guys.
What was your question, though?
I wanted to join in on the bug conversation, which I love both of your stories, by the way. Beautiful. We've always kind of, both of us, liked bugs, but had certain fears around certain ones, especially for me, spiders.
Yeah.
Growing up in the apartment we lived in, just everywhere, and the fear that I saw from my mom, and so
Yeah.
I mean, about 2 years ago, looking back, I literally was murdering spiders and feeling horrible, even though I was that scared. You feel like you just don't feel right after doing something, even when you feel justified.
Yeah.
But after one bout of these wolf spiders, and really considering how one jumped right in my face, and how tiny, they're big spiders for spiders, but compared to us, they're so tiny. And imagine how they must feel, especially when you're coming after them. They're not coming after you. And we've gotten to a point where we now have resident spiders in the house. They're everywhere, and we leave them alone. And it is once you get curious about them and start respecting them,
And their life.
right?
Yeah.
They're not. Like I said, they're not coming after you. Everything is just unfolding. Life is just life, and I don't know. Some of our fears are just so ridiculous, and
Yeah.
it's I think a lot from programming, but I don't want to go too far. But
No, you're right, though.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So when you see, as a child, your mother, or somebody who teaches you everything about life, reacting like that, of course there's going to be an impression left that that's what you're supposed to do. And we don't even think about it. But I saw a little cartoon one time. I love spiders. I think they're the coolest thing in the world. They really, there's so many of them, and they all have different personalities, and some of them are pretty, let's say that they span personalities like people do. Yes, they do. So, but I saw this cartoon one time, and it kind of, I don't know if it was PETA who put it out or something, but it was this little spider who's sitting on the floor, and there's a woman with a frying pan standing on top of a chair screaming, and the little spider's little thought bubble is why is she acting so crazy? Does she not know I'm here? And it's this little tiny thing. Yeah, and of course there are insects that can hurt you. I have chronic Lyme disease. I'll have it for the rest of my life. There are insects whose bite can hurt you. But we're biological organisms living in a biological world, and we do have the ability to take precautions if we know to and if we care to. And those precautions are things that we put on us, not on them, as best we can.
That's perfect.
Yeah. There are times where we have to do things that we don't want to do. We had a wasp infestation over by the pond. There were literally thousands upon thousands of wasps invading the magnolia tree over there because it had scale all over it. And it was dangerous for people to go by the pond. So we did have to address that. But we addressed it, and we say we're sorry, and we just hope to strive for a greater balance then, Yeah. Did you want to say something?
I just wanted to add that I kind of feel like that experience of I would never swat at a stick bug, but I do feel like the moment that I experienced of that witnessing myself witnessing was kind of the fruit of I made a new commitment to not killing ticks after pulling them off my dog. So it doesn't matter what time of day it is, I will walk them out to this big blue spruce tree at the very end of the yard and just put them there. And it's made changes in me. It's caused changes, just that little act. And sometimes when I'm trying to get them off, I kill them by accident, but that's different than oh, I hate you,
Yeah, exactly.
He's carrying.
Yeah.
No, that's
everything.
absolutely, that's,
Yeah.
I hear that. I've done the same thing recently because when I grew up, it was immediately burn it. I don't know why, but burn it.
Take a match
So,
head and yeah.
So now I've been doing the same thing. If I find one on the dog, I carefully take it off and I walk it to somewhere else, even though part of me is like, but I think that once you realize that the divine is in everything, no matter how obnoxious that take is.
It's
to
true.
Me, it
Yeah.
really was humbling to me because, like, even with eating meat at some points and stuff, because we're like species, it's like, God and the creation is for us, and everything else is for us too, but it's not. It's all for all of us, and that's what really changed it for me, because as much as like I want to burn that tick, and I've had alpha-gal syndrome from ticks, I've had Lyme's disease, I've had it all. So part of me, like even when I see them in nature on a blade, part of me is like, I want to kill it, but I don't, because now I'm becoming more aware that even though it's not my favorite thing, it is still divine nonetheless.
It's interesting, when you start looking at things from that perspective, it is very humbling, because what you're actually saying to yourself is, this little object deserves its life as much as I do. This little critter deserves to live as much as I do. And just because I'm so much bigger and more powerful, that it does not give me the right to take its life from it. And when we start thinking about that, for insects, or we automatically extrapolate that out to each other, to other people. We can never be too kind. We can never be too appreciative of life. But we can certainly be way too violent, and way too disregarding. Yeah. So don't be afraid to have, emotional connection with little critters. It's okay. And don't stomp on them if you can help it at all. Yeah, because nature takes care of herself. She really does. Those lantern flies, they were all the first couple of years, stomp them. It's like, no, I'm not going to stomp them.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it either.
Yeah, and now they found out they're like wasps enjoy them, and praying mantises and nature takes care of it. She'll take care of it. And she'll take care of everything. She'll take care of us one day too. We better watch it. Let's sit tall and close the eyes. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. And together we'll lift our voices in one Om, followed by the All Beings mantra. Taking a breath in. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Now and always honoring your light and the light of all beings everywhere. Om, peace, peace, peace. Thank you all so much for being here today. So good to see each and every one of you. Thank you for all of the wonderful thoughts and questions that you brought forward. And enjoy the rest of your day. YTTs, we will meet at, let's do 1:30 because it's a little bit later. So we'll do 1:30 in the auditorium, so you'll have time for your lunch and then maybe a 20-minute nap afterward before we start class. Okay? So that's what the 1:30 is for. Okay. Yeah, very good.